Hi, I'm Kenny Anderson and welcome to Impact. Each week we bring you information about a variety of things that are happening in our community, and we're always interested in introducing you to guests that you may be familiar with and other people that you may not be as familiar with. Today I'm happy to say we got a very special guest on the broadcast, and I'm delighted to be able to spend this time with him on the show. You know, on April 29th of this year, a very well-known group will be inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. That group actually had its roots right here in Huntsville, Alabama at my alma mater, Oakwood University. Joining me today is Claude McKnight, one of the founding members of the group Take Six. And let me say, first of all, welcome to Impact and also congratulations on this selection to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, and thank you.
And we both understand what that means, right?
Man, yeah.
Well, listen, I just want to share a couple of things for those that are listening, and this goes without saying, but just to remind some people, you guys were signed by Warner Brothers Records back in 1987, released your first album. It went bananas back then.
Bananas is a good word. Yeah, I don't think they give out awards that say bananas.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But they do give out Grammys.
They do.
And Dove Awards and lots of other things. And you guys have had a very storied career now, celebrating 25 years in the industry, and congratulations on that as well. It certainly says something to have that level of endurance in this industry.
Yeah, these days, I mean, for a group to continue and to stay together, and with 6 guys, it's almost unheard of. So It's a real blessing for us.
Yeah. You're not going to be on Unsung anytime soon.
Let's hope not. No.
That kind of thing. Well, listen, man, how did it all begin?
You know, the tried and true story is I started a quartet when I was a freshman at Oakwood College at the time, which is now Oakwood University. Most people know, but I'll give a little bit more history. Oakwood has a very rich heritage of a cappella groups. And I just decided I wanted to have another a cappella group on campus. So it was very easy to find 3 other guys who could sing the kind of music that we were doing. It was basically barbershop style quartet music. We grew up listening to the Breath of Life Quartet and some of the other groups that were luminaries at the time. 3 other guys with me that were freshmen. We started singing, and next thing you know, Mark Kibble, who I had known for many years before when I lived in Buffalo, New York, actually came into a restroom where we were rehearsing, added a 5th part to what we were doing on the spot, sang with us that evening on the show, joined the group, and then introduced me to Mervyn Warren, who became the 6th member. Once we got 6 guys, we kind of differentiated ourselves from everybody else on campus, and we thought we were the cats. So we went along that route for a few years, and then, as you said, in '87, we decided to do a showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. Got our record deal the next day.
Yeah, what was that like experiencing that? Because you guys were students and taking a normal, average student route. You're thinking about, I'm going to go to school, get a degree, start a career, and then your path moves in this direction. What was that like at that time?
It was crazy because, again, it didn't slow down. It was something that just happened all of a sudden like this. If we had had time to think about it, if we had time to even be rejected and then continue trying, even that would have been different. Since I believe 3 of us were still students at the time, all of a sudden we were in the music business. 20 days later, we started recording our first record.
Wow.
So we had no time to catch up. It was like, okay, we got to sing now. We're in this business.
And you're recognizing that this opportunity now has been presented. So the door has been open. And it's the same door that's been open for so many people in the past with varying degrees of success. How are you guys interacting with one another in this process? What are you thinking about moving forward? Are you thinking this first record that we produced, at that time we were calling them records because we didn't have CDs back then.
Right.
But this first record that you produce is going to be a hit. It's going to take us certain places. It's going to establish us in the industry. Did you have certain markers and goals that you were shooting for?
We had no clue. In fact, Jim Ed Norman, who signed us, he was the president of Warner Brothers at the time. And people need to understand he was the president of the country music division of Warner Brothers. That's where our deal was. When he signed us, he said, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this music.
Wow.
I love it, though. And so even for us, it was like, well, let's just do this and see what happens. His idea of success at the time was, hopefully we'll sell 25, 30,000 copies of this, and we'll break even, and it'll be a nice experiment. And I think when you take the pressure off of what it is you're doing and you're just doing it out of the love that we had for it and the love that he had for it, it just makes for not only a good time, but I think that that translates in the recording. And then it just goes where it's going to go.
You produced this self-titled album. It hits big. 2 Grammys are produced out of that experience. That's got to be a crazy feeling.
Yeah, it's really crazy because we sang on that Grammy Awards as well. Now, the really cool thing about that time was we were actually nominated for 3. And the one that we didn't win is the one we talk about most, because that was for Best New Artist. And at that time, and I'm not sure since then, but I know up until that time, no other gospel group had been nominated for Best New Artist. And although we didn't win that year, Tracy Chapman won, you can only be nominated once for that.
Wow.
So that was very, very cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it had to be one of those surreal experiences where you've now made this commitment to the industry and you're now beginning to chart your course and you have this great success. How do you somehow balance that? Because I would imagine it would be very much like an athlete who comes out, wins Rookie of the Year, MVP that first year out the gate. How do you balance that in terms of moving forward?
It's interesting because when you have a lot of success right away, you're right, you have to start balancing. And because you don't have any frame of reference necessarily to do that, you're learning on the job, you know, and now you're finding out amongst the 6 of you what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and how to navigate through all of that. A lot of times you have the sophomore slump, you know, where now the things that worked on the first record, you're doing more of that or less of that depending on who actually worked on the first record, you know, or people are thinking, well, I need to be more important now. And that happens with all groups. It happened with the Beatles. It happened with, you know, no matter who you are. And within our group, what has always been first and foremost, and this isn't a cliche, is we had to realize that God was first. And this was a ministry for us, and we needed to try to stay out of the way. And in this 25-year period, it hasn't been easy because we're 6 knuckleheads at times, you know, and when you allow yourself to get in the way, as I'm saying, you find out how hard it is to keep this ship afloat, you know, so we really try to take it to him.
Who is that man in the audience?
Take 6, of course, many other artists over the years from my own personal experience. But we don't see the backstory. We don't see the journey to that finished product. Talk a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes in the recording process itself to get to that finished product.
We are meticulous, you know, and not just in the recording process, but even before we got our deal, and especially before we got our deal. And that's what we tell most artists. You have to really, really, really love this and work your craft to the extent that whether you get a deal or not, you are really polished in what it is you do. You are unique in what you do, and you're continuing to learn. When we were on campus, we would literally have our studies throughout the week, and from sundown Friday until sundown Sunday, we might rehearse for 20 some hours. Find it, you know, sometime in that time period, 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. You know, and when you can live like that and you can have that kind of commitment, well, then now we understand when we're not able to get together all the time, I know who can do what under what circumstances because we have that kind of history together. I think that's what you need.
Yeah, and of course there's the touring, there's the promotions, there's all of these other things that are happening in that process. And over 25 years, I imagine you've allowed quite a few frequent flyer miles.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we talk about it all the time. Last year was actually the official 25th anniversary of our first record. And I believe we flew over 150,000 miles. You know, we went all over the world. We crisscrossed everywhere. We went to Australia for the first time, and everywhere in between. And so when people ask me, where have we gone? I generally say, you might want to ask me where we haven't been.
It's probably a shorter list.
Wonderful ride, yeah, very short list.
Yeah, and you guys really have had a chance to touch so many lives all over the world. You have fan bases everywhere. people who have come to love the Take Six sound, and it is a very unique, very distinguished sound. It's a very polished sound, and I tell people all the time that, you know, you have not done yourself a favor until you have purchased a ticket for a live Take Six concert. You guys practice a lot still, and you have a chemistry, I'm sure by now,
yes,
that allows you to move forward in this process of continuing to finesse the Take Six brand. How do you guys keep that thing going?
Well, you know, it starts with the love of it. We still love what we do. And because there are 6 of us and we're all extremely creative, we're always trying to push each other. And we also have Mark Kibble at the helm as our arranger, and he has no shortage of ideas. So we push him as well. I dare say if we didn't love this as much, the sound would suffer, the arrangements would suffer, and it would be hard to go on the road. And that happens a lot with groups. It happens a lot with artists, whether you're very successful at it or not. Sometimes you get burnt out. And even, you know, us at times find ourselves tired. But I think that we are in tune enough with each other to say we need a little break. We even need to get away from each other for a little while to get recharged. And as long as you can have that kind of communication, then everybody can move together in the way they need to.
Yeah. Do you think back on, or I should ask you, as you think back on the many people you've worked with, and it's a virtual who's list in the music industry of people that you've worked with, are there some favorites that you've had in terms of the experiences, not so much in terms of the personalities, but in terms of the musical experience that you had with the person?
Absolutely. You know, at the top of that list is Quincy Jones. You know, we worked with him numerous times. But the really great thing about Quincy is he is so down to earth and so amazingly creative at the same time. And he's the kind of producer that gets things out of you that you didn't really know you have. And to me, that's the mark of a great producer. It's not what he brings to the table and what he's trying to craft, you know, and you're trying to fit into that. He's trying to get all this incredible stuff out of you to put into the mix of what his grand scheme is. And so that's a wonderful experience to work with that kind of a producer. And then obviously Stevie Wonder, who we worked with, that's our big brother, you know, so that's, you know, I could go on and on about, you know, and then Al Jarreau, who was our first major tour. And he was such a gracious person. And there are so many horror stories for people in the industry who have opened for big artists, you know, where they've been treated poorly or that kind of thing. Al used to bring us out on stage during his set and things of that nature. So he really nurtured us in this business from very early on.
Sure has great value. A quote by Quincy Jones that you guys are the baddest vocal cats on the planet certainly stands for a whole lot. I love that quote. And as I think about the work that you guys have done, you mentioned Quincy Jones. I remember the Saturday Night Live appearance, which had to be surreal because at the time, Saturday Night Live, it's like when you got to Saturday Night Live, you were there. And We Be Doing It was a pretty hot hit at that time. I remember seeing you guys do your thing. That had to be kind of interesting, that whole experience.
It was crazy because it was live. Most people, or nobody knows, that is basically 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as they're bringing the curtain up or whatever was happening, everybody wasn't in position. I'm not going to mention any names, but by the time we started singing, it got to where it needed to be, but there was a little bit of chaos happening right before. But that's the beauty of live TV as well. You know, you don't know what's going to happen, and so the energy was certainly there.
Kind of happens as you go. And of course, another one of my favorite shows, I watch lots of reruns of Martin. You guys had a chance to do that the final few seasons, I think, of that. How did that come along, about?
You know, Mark and Joey were they actually spearheaded that. And I'm not really sure how it came to them or if they presented something to them, but they loved it. And next thing you know, it's running. You know, it's like, yeah, that's us.
That's a wonderful thing, I think, that happened. You know, you have been a professional artist for many years now, and there's more to you than just being the musician. You're a father. You were talking a little earlier about your grandchild. What is that experience like, just being a dad and also now being a grandfather as you move through these transitions in life?
It's crazy, man, because I have a really young spirit, or so I think, you know.
I'm gonna talk about basketball in just a moment.
Right. You know, I think I'm this, you know, young hip guy, but I'm actually, you know, I'm in my 50s now.
Right.
And so my daughter is grown, and she's so grown now that she has a child, you know. So it's weird because I've always thought of her as a little kid. You know, you almost don't want your kids to grow up, but they do. And now I'm a grandfather, and I'm like, wow, this little dude is, you know, in the family. He looks like me. You know, it's a wonderful thing. It mellows you out, too. You know, and it also lets you know you're not quite as hip as you know, thought you were. And that's cool, too. You know, I think there is a wonderful feeling of growing older and more mature in a healthy way.
I can absolutely relate to that. We look back on those younger years and we remember so many things and the energy of our youth sometimes, but also think about some of the craziness of our youth.
Yeah.
And we've harnessed some of those things now. We can move forward.
Yeah, hopefully you do, you know?
At least you have the opportunity
to
make that choice. You are a basketball fan. You're a fan of the game. You also play a lot. It's one of the ways you get your exercise in. Just talk about that whole mindset, because you're out there running up and down the court with cats that are a lot younger than you, of course. But I mean, you feel pretty motivated in that environment.
Well, I've always been athletic, so it was always important to me. And as I've gotten older, I've tried to continue that. I understand, of course, that at 51, I'm not 21. So the interesting thing now about playing basketball is I'm so much smarter at the game itself. And that comes from studying the game for many years, playing it for many years. And I think you get smarter when you realize that your athletic skills are not quite what they used to be anymore. So now it's a chess game where you have to size up how you feel each day, size up who you're playing against, and realize I can do this, this, and this, but I can't do this, this, and this.
Right. So
let me try to be smart, because all I want to do is win. And that, to me, seems to be the biggest difference a lot of times between older cats that play and younger cats with all this energy and everything. They got to get their shots up. They got to look pretty and all that. I'm like, hey, fella, you just want to win and stay on the court.
Yeah, just make the bucket.
That's right.
Whoever can make it,
That's
however
right. That's
they
why I
can make
like
it.
the San Antonio Spurs. You know, and the funny thing is, when I was younger, I didn't like them because they weren't flashy. They weren't all those things. So I'm talking to myself, too. I'm talking to the 21-year-old Claude saying, hey, man, just wait till you're 51.
Right.
You'll get it.
You'll understand by and by. You obviously have an iPod and listen to music a lot of times. What might people be surprised that's on your iPod?
Surprised? You know, I listen to some country music. I love Vince Gill, one of my favorite male vocalists. Man, what else? Because I'm a very eclectic listener. You know, so I don't think people would really be surprised, especially if they follow my Facebook page. You know, I'll put up the Eagles sometimes, Ambrosia, Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know, so it's all over the place.
Broad cross-section of things. And that's what I appreciate the most about music, actually, because there's so many different styles, and to pigeonhole myself into one venue, one style is just not what's happening. Everybody has one. I'm curious about yours. What's on your bucket list?
Wow. You know what? I want to go to the Indianapolis 500. I've always wanted to do that. I love car racing, and I love to do that myself. In fact, I drove a NASCAR around the Atlanta Speedway.
Wow.
18 laps. It was the most fun I've had.
At what speed?
160 plus.
What did that feel like?
Oh, man. It was... let me say this, I have a newfound respect for race car drivers because you have to have so much strength and fortitude to hold yourself in that car going full out into those curves. And I'm doing it by myself. Imagine 30, 40 other cars bumper to bumper doing that. So I was spent. When I got out of the car, I was ready to go to sleep.
So the Indianapolis 500 is one idea.
That's one idea, yeah. I'm not one of those guys that wants to jump out of planes and all that kind of stuff. No, you know, perfectly good plane, I'll fly in it. I don't want to jump out, no.
Is there a destination that you haven't gotten to yet that you just are dying to go to?
I would love to go to Greece. We haven't been there. So that, and I want to see the pyramids in Egypt. Haven't seen that.
Well, it's probably coming.
It's coming, yes.
Everybody that likes Take Six has a favorite Take Six project. At least I want to believe that they do.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you what yours might be in terms of the stuff that you've produced over the years. Then I'm going to tell you what mine is.
Wow. My favorite Take Six project is probably Feels Good, which is an album that most people don't know about because we released it on our own label. And at the time, we were a subsidiary of Tower Records. And Tower Records went out of business. So, you know, consequently, our label had to fold at that time. And so that album was basically lost. And at some point, I know we're going to re-release it. But it's a wonderful, wonderful record. And anytime I listen to it, I'm like, man, this is really good. So.
That's good. Well, mine is Join the Band.
Okay.
And I think it's because of Badia. It's a short little piece, but I find myself just kind of listening to it every now and then, and my head is moving and bopping, and I'm thinking about Earth, Wind, and Fire, and a lot of other things. But everybody has one. I was just wondering what yours might have been. You know, with the explosion of technology, there have been a lot of changes in the music industry. Obviously, the way music is released and the way it is made accessible to others and the way it's recorded since you all first started. What changes have happened that have had the most impact or perhaps the most significant impact on the group?
Probably the fact that it's so easy to record without having to be together. You know, when we first started out, we basically all recorded together in the same room as we were learning how to do this. Now, because of technology, you know, you can record by yourself on your laptop and just send the parts, you know, to the next guy and add his stuff or whatever. And that works out because we don't all live in the same place. And we have, you know, lives that are so busy that we can't always get together to do that. Now, that's not optimum to record that way, but you can.
Yeah. Take Six, 25 years. How many more years do we see you guys doing your thing?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know, we're going to do it as long as it remains fun. You know, I would never, ever, ever want to be one of those groups that you go to see and you're like, man, these guys aren't having fun. You know, I can't imagine. That'd be drudgery and that would be work.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not work.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious when you see you guys on stage, even in the whole process of doing the concert, you guys are having fun, you're connecting with the audience in various ways.
There's inside jokes on stage, you know, that people aren't aware of. And when you can continue doing that, it's just like being back at Blake Center.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yes.
Claude, it's been great talking to you today. I know you've got lots of ways that people can connect with you. It's a website. Want to tell people how to get access to that, and if you want to
very easily for Take Six is www.take6.com, and that's the number 6, not the word. Or you can come to our Facebook page, which we're very active on. That's just Take Six on Facebook. Twitter @Take6Official, or you can come to my page, Claude McKnight. I'm around. Instagram, Claudie Mac. You know, holler at me.
A lot of active stuff going on too, because you definitely stay active on Facebook, and I love social media. I know you do too. You guys have a busy rest of the year.
We do. We do. We interestingly enough, we just finished a short run with Kirk Whalum and Nina Freelong and Clint Holmes and a couple other people, where we did a Ray Charles tribute. And I believe we're going to be taking that out on the road later in the year as well. And so we'll be in Europe and Japan and other places doing the Take Six thing, which we do every year. But that's one of the projects I'm really excited about.
Claude McKnight, founding member of Take Six. Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
We want to thank you for being a part of our broadcast and invite you to join us once again for our next edition of Impact with Kenny Anderson. In the meantime, I hope that you have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you soon. That was awesome, man.
never had a plan, 'cause I never had a dream.
It was a wet and dreary day on the campus of Oakwood College, but spirits of the students were bright. They were ready for a special homecoming. You might say a musical homecoming. 6 former Oakwood College students who went on to form the gospel jazz group Take 6 were heading home for a concert tonight at the Civic Center.
You excited to see them?
Very excited. I'm going to the concert tonight at 7:30.
Do you want to test the mic out closer?
We can put the monitors out there and run you out and we'll see what happens.
While the group uses microphones when they perform and a piano when they arrange, they sing a cappella. Their voices are their instruments.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary. Oh, Mary. Oh, Mary.
Well, we started out doing a cappella music from the very beginning. That wasn't the only kind of music that we were doing, but basically the makeup of this group was a cappella.
So the mic's kind of your instrument, huh?
Yeah, mics and the vocal cords, that about does it. We all play.
Yeah.
I play guitar, trombone, and piano also. A little bit of the bass, but basically we're just a vocal group.
When you can make sounds like these, hey, who needs instruments? The group Take 6 manages nicely without.
Who is that man in the audience with the leather jacket on? With the leather jacket on.
When you can sing without instruments and make up the words as you go, you're pretty good. This is Dick Curtis at Large, Huntsville.